Okay, boys and girls, this is some good warnings. Good warnings. If we're doing business, we want to check our downsides. There's a lot of warnings. Now, what if on the final day, your friend, the one that whose name you've been using, your friend Jesus, came to you, and what if he said, "You're worse than an unbeliever"? What if he came to you and said, "You have denied the faith"? Okay, that's 1 Timothy 5:8. How can you have denied the faith and be worse than an unbeliever? You haven't cared for your own. Now, this is very interesting because men have to care for women, and women have to care for men, but they have to care in the ways that Jesus taught. It's very easy to say, I love Jesus, and then follow the world's way of thinking and doing things. Now, let's think about the men. The men are going to tend, this is a good thing because it's good to think about the downsides. If you care about your people, if you care about your family, if you care about your kids, you got to think about how they're going to be weak or have problems. So the men are going to be like Adam. Adam was afraid of speaking up. He knew something was wrong. His friend did not know she was doing something wrong, and he did not speak up. He kept his mouth shut, and that was horrible, and he is judged. It's his fault, not her fault. He was supposed to speak up. Ahab had the same problem. He wanted this little field. His wife went and killed somebody to get the field. He didn't need the field that bad. He didn't need his wife to kill the guy to get the field, and he could have said, no, don't kill the man. It's not that important. But Ahab didn't speak up. Then King Saul had a wonderful victory, and everybody was happy about his victory, and everybody was partying, and all kinds of good stuff was going on. But only Saul and Samuel knew that God had asked him to do a thing, and he didn't do it. And because he didn't do the little thing that God asked him to do, which, took some work and effort, he was actually dethroned, and his kingdom was thrown away. Then there's Solomon. Solomon's so smart, so wise, so amazing, but he had connection with so many women, and he started caring more about the women, and he started going astray. And then there's Judah. Read about Judah. Poor Judah. He was a pretty messed up guy. Judah means praise, and Judah is where the Jews came from, but the man Judah, the son of Israel named Judah, he had some real problems in his life. And Samson, Samson's story? Well, Samson was actually used to go into the Philistines because of his love for Philistine women. So his weakness, his male weakness, was actually used as a special thing for God. And it was like a crazy combination of being wrong, but ending up being in a victory, because the Samson story starts out with the Israelites being in really, really horrible oppression. But God kind of uses him as a secret weapon to sneak him into the Philistine camp. And then he really changes things. And it even says that his mom and dad did not understand why he had a love for the wrong woman, which is really cool. It was God's purpose for him to actually be chasing after the wrong woman, because God had a bigger purpose. That means that God's doing stuff regardless of what's going on, and he's got something coming up in the future. So that's the men. Then the women will be like Eve. The women will see nice things and want to bring them in. They'll see it's good for the body and as sort of wisdom. But sometimes they're over padding the nest, and somebody needs to say, no, we don't need that. No, that's forbidden. And Jezebel, the same thing. She was kind of, off on her own program. She was doing a bunch of things, and she did not have a man. She didn't say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing. What do you think? Can I get your blessing on this? And Vashti refused to go to the party of her husband, the king, and she was dethroned. Sometimes you have to go to the man's party even when you don't feel like. You need to go there because you are the blessing and you are the beauty and you are part of the man. And the woman with the spirit of divination, she had all kinds of God truth coming out of her, but it was in a wrong spirit. Hey, this thing's going on, that thing's going on. Sometimes human beings can be out prophesying and doing stuff, but they're actually supposed to be in connection with a completely different thing and helping. They can actually be doing spiritual habits and religious behaviors, but actually not be doing what's more important. So we need to be real about our people types. And here's the question: who will teach them how to properly care for their own? The thing that we constantly talk about in this house is that there's three gifts: the Holy Spirit in power, the teachings of Jesus for the new covenant. And there's a lot of details. And the first teaching is we come together and we are honest before communion in our homes, and we open our hearts to one another about our troubles, and we carry one another. I've never had that in 62 years of church. I've never had regular honesty in communion times. And then number three, there are special people. There are special people that are sent to you to help you get closer to God. They're sent to you from heaven. And the more that you listen to them or connect with them or even help them in the, ordinary things in their lives, you're actually helping God in heaven by helping the one that's sent to you. So, more of the warnings. You don't want Jesus to be saying you've denied the faith and you're worse than an unbeliever. These are good warnings. And you have to care for your own. And that doesn't just mean you have to throw money at your brother and sister. You have to learn how to care for one another as family and men and women. Now, here's some of the other warnings. Jesus says, "Go away, I never knew you. You are lawless and you're disobedient." And that means you're not following the things that he taught the apostles of how we're supposed to be church in the home and church on the street. In all the New Testament, the only place that the people met was in homes. That doesn't mean that meeting at a big box worship center is a bad thing. But the pastors need to tell the people to go home and get in a cluster of families and have an honesty time and joy and singing and care for one another's needs around the communion group. So Jesus says, "Go away, I never knew you. You are lawless and disobedient because you haven't been following what I told you to do to keep the souls alive. And you men have not been caring for the women the way they're supposed to. And the women have not cared for themselves by being sheltered in the guidance and the protection of the men. Your hearts were far from me." That's Mark 7:6 and Matthew 15, verse 8 and 9. Your hearts were far from me. The people are going to say, "Hey, we did all these miracles. Hey, we got the Holy Spirit in power. Hey, we got the power from on high and we did a bunch of miracles." And it's like, well, you didn't follow what I instructed people to do. You didn't follow my teaching. So, you didn't care about me. You just enjoyed my powers. And it's fun to, see someone get saved, but you didn't actually nurture them. Who will teach them how to properly care for themselves and care for their own people? The next one, you did not hold to my teachings. John 8:31 and 32 says, to the Jews who had connected with him and gotten on his team, he said, "If you remain in my teachings, then you are really my disciples. Then you will know truth, and then you will be set free." Inversely, if you don't hold to the teachings, then you don't know the truth and you ain't free. You're in bondage. Now, this one is 2 John 9-11. Some people are doing a wicked work because they're rushing ahead with miracle signs and wonders and salvations and all kinds of special stuff and their favorite doctrinal teaching, but they are not giving the full teachings of Christ. They're doing a wicked work and they don't have God, and you should actually not have invitation of fellowship with them. But sadly, most of American Christianity is missing the apostles' teaching, so that's a very difficult issue to deal with, and I'm dealing with that right now. 2 John 9-11 is one of the most tough scriptures in the whole Bible. Now, 7 demons worse, that's another really interesting one. Read through Luke 11 and realize that when a person comes to God, their house, they become peaceful and they become happy and they become calm, but they can actually end up being angry and prideful in a Jesus t-shirt in a way where they're in religious violence or religious pride, which is not quite as visible as worldly pride. That's the 7 demons worse. They come in a religious or spiritual form. then the love of God is not in you. There's a handful of warnings: John 5, 1 John 4, and 1 John 2:15. If you're not really caring for others, or if you're prideful in your leadership and you're not really following the things that the Son of God, Messiah, taught, then the love of God is not in you. That's a tough one. Now, I'm fixing to expose your prophets and pastors, and you're going to hate me and what I say. If you care for your soul, however, someday you will join us in the joy and the goodies of Jesus' way of life. I have lived in American Christianity for 62 years, and I have not yet found anyone who is inviting people into regular times of loving family honesty and communion times with a cluster of family and the support of single people. And the music in the background is from Precious Mr. G. God bless you all.